Let's not mince words. While we speak fondly of advertising mascots on this show, there's one innate truth to the business of ad work, and that is the very simple fact that it's all based on bullshit. 100% grade A, certified fresh, homegrown bullshit. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret about the advertising world, and this may shock you, so those of you with weak hearts might want to stop watching now. But advertising companies lie to sell their products. And while this is a widely accepted fact in the business world, a fact so common that even the general public has allowed it, one has to wonder how far they would go if they could. And one company found out. That company was Isuzu, and the man who lied for them was named Joe.
There is truth in advertising, yes I swear. Got new Nikes on my feet and Vidal Sassoon in my hair. I can sure use a Budweiser fruit of the loom underwear. There is truth in advertising, I swear. Why would they lie to me when they love what they sell? Plus we all know that the liars have a special fire in hell. On the television, radio, and in the magazines, the advertising gods perpetuate the American dream. Advertising, let it be, let it be. Now I know that I don't need to buy everything they try to sell me, but so easily divided is a fool and his money. There is truth in advertising, let it be. Why would they lie to me when they love what they sell? Plus we all know that the liars got a special fire in hell. On the television, radio, and in the magazines, the advertising gods perpetuate American dream.
People today would like you to believe that we've outsourced all of our country's manufacturing to other countries only recently, brandishing about the Buy American slogan, as if it's some kind of verbal tick they can't quite get rid of. But the fact of the matter is that a good percentage of vehicles in this country have been being made overseas by foreign countries for probably longer than most of us have been alive at this point. In fact, Tesla might be one of the only companies that assembles all their vehicles sold in this country, but even then, 69% of their parts come from either the US or Canada, while a fifth are from Mexico. Honda, Toyota, Subaru, Nissan, Mazda, Lexus, Acura, and Mitsubishi are all foreign car companies. Almost every big-name player in this industry in our country is not from said country, including one name many of you may not recognize these days. That name is Isuzu. The company arrived on US soil in 1981 and had an ad budget less than a tenth of Toyota's. This meant that their advertising had to be impactful, memorable, and original, because up to this point, most car ads were simplistic and relatively the same. Long, panning shots of cars driving on random roads, soft music, and perhaps some narration. It got to the point where these ads were so interchangeable that consumers had trouble even distinguishing the companies from one another by ad alone until the name of the company showed up. So, for a company like Isuzu, with a tiny budget and a not-so-big presence in the market, to try to make themselves known was a challenge, an uphill battle. But you know what Americans know better than brands? Bullshit. And that's exactly what Isuzu banked on.
With this lie detector, I'll prove this great-looking Isuzu is a better pickup than Toyota. It has more standard features than Toyota. It has a double-walled cargo bed, steel-belted radials, and a 5-speed transmission. Toyota doesn't. Yet it's the lowest-priced import truck in America. See, you can trust me.
Now, with factory incentives, you could save even more on the Isuzu pickup.
Seeking to differentiate themselves from the US market full of their direct competitors, Isuzu partnered with ad agency Della Femina, Travisano and Partners to invent an ad campaign that would set them apart from everyone else. This included, of course, inventing someone to be in said ad, and that someone was Joe Isuzu. Portrayed by actor David Leisure from 1986 to 1990, Joe Isuzu would have been considered a parody of car salesmen if they weren't, actually like this. With a plastered-on smile and an over-the-top delivery, Joe Isuzu's entire gimmick was to make absurdly false claims about Isuzu vehicles. The ad's gimmick wasn't actually Joe, however. It was that the ad directly contradicted itself by flashing on-screen text, simply saying, "He's lying. This isn't true." In a way, Isuzu was telling you that advertising is bullshit, as are the people who try to sell you on it. It was kind of brilliant, honestly. And it worked, because the campaign was nothing short of a smash success, not only making Isuzu, both company and character alike, a household name, but also leading to an 18% increase in sales within the first 12 months. There was just one big drawback. People seemed to like Joe Isuzu way more than the company itself. So sure, Isuzu themselves benefited, but Leisure benefited more. As the character, he wound up filming a cross-promotional commercial for Burger King in 1988, and 4 years later, pushed A&W root beer. Isuzu became so synonymous with the concept of lying that his name became shorthand for exactly that in the American lexicon. And, in perhaps the most ironic twist of fate, Ronald Reagan, a rather renowned liar himself, compared Isuzu's huckster demeanor to then-current Nicaraguan leader Daniel Ortega, which is, I have to say, maybe the most egregious example of projection I've ever seen in politics. Well, until the last handful of years anyway. See, Joe was such a hit that people forget he was trying to sell them cars. They wanted to see Joe, not Isuzu's new model. That's what they tuned into the commercial for. That's what they remembered from the ads. That was a problem. Come 1990, after a whopping 40 ads and declining car sales, Joe's campaign was phased out, and Isuzu, now struggling worse than before, shifted focus to trucks. By 2008, just 7,000 of the more than 16 million cars sold in the US were theirs. They are now known as a purely commercial vehicle and diesel engine manufacturer, primarily for their trucks, as they no longer sell new passenger vehicles in the States. But they do remain a rather significant player in the commercial vehicle market. And while they aren't by any means the only car company to go completely under, Saturn being another famous example, they're at least still around, albeit in a much more limited capacity, and nobody really knows unless you're in the industry. The same, however, cannot be said for Joe, who may be one of the only examples of a mascot outliving the brand. Even now, when people see David Leisure, they call him Joe Isuzu, and he's reprised the role a handful of times, and not just for the company. For example, in 2012, Leisure reprised the character briefly for Mitt Romney's presidential campaign. Hell, right before they pulled out of the passenger vehicle market, Isuzu themselves brought Joe back, but it didn't seem to make a difference for them. Joe Isuzu might be one of the purest ad campaigns to ever exist, purely because it explicitly tells the viewer, we are lying to you. It makes them question advertising itself in general, and that's an interesting tactic to take when you're trying to push your own product. Sure, his claims of the cars being able to go up mountains or getting 300 miles to the gallon are amusing, but more amusing is the fact that it's so self-aware of its outrageous claims. Blatantly so. There's one last thing to mention though. As Joe himself became more famous than the company itself, Isuzu, in an effort to further boost sales and assuage concerns of his fame over them, tweaked the campaign to make Joe more honest about the car's benefits. Ads from this era saw Joe using more assertive sales tactics, ambushing salesmen trying to sell other brands of vehicles, and mentioning Isuzu's superior performance to the consumer, luring them back to the other company. This didn't work, and it makes no sense from an advertising perspective. Why take the thing that people knew about you and then change it to make it less notable? Certainly, from a business perspective, yes, their concerns of Joe overshadowing themselves were, on some level, valid. But valid enough to warrant the outright destruction of the very thing that kept you in the public consciousness? That's ludicrous. For God's sakes, Isuzu, the 1985 Impulse didn't go to the 21st Super Bowl. Joe did. In fact, in a twist of irony, the very year he was featured in the 1987 Super Bowl, he also spoke on the character's fame. And what the actor said was quite prophetic. Maybe people love the commercials, he said, but don't know much about the cars. Joe Isuzu, despite his fame, despite his iconic status for a period of time, despite his name entering the lexicon as shorthand for liar, and despite being featured in the Daily Finance's 2012 list of top 25 celebrity spokespeople of all time, has retained virtually no relevance. Nobody, except the people who either are aware of the industry or were there when it happened, really know about him. That's the kind of fame we hope to cover on this show, where a mascot seemingly ruled the airwaves one day, and then just as seemingly managed to vanish the next. Joe Isuzu was a liar, but advertising a business built around lying, so it all makes sense. Joe Isuzu's iconography may not be what it once was, but that's why we do what we do. Because, despite that loss of notoriety, they deserve to be remembered. That's what we're here for. Joe Isuzu deserves to be recognized, remembered, and discussed. Because at one point, he was as famous on television as anyone on a hit sitcom. And if that isn't success, I don't know what is. And we will continue to do this for as long as there are mascots out there, like Joe, who need to be remembered. As Joe said, you have my word on it.
This is my mom. And if everything I say about the four-wheel drive Isuzu Trooper 2 isn't true, may she be struck by lightning. It can carry a symphony orchestra or every book in the Library of Congress. And the nice part is the Trooper 2 starts at just $10.80. You have my mom's word on it. Mom?
See the affordable four-wheel drive Trooper 2 at your Isuzu dealer today.